Hey, broken salespeople. Welcome to the workshop. And today we are going to be talking about winning, learning, and Kobe Bryant. That's on this episode of the Broken Salespeople podcast. Hey, broken salespeople. Welcome to the workshop. My name is Red Staffstrom, and today we are here to talk about fixing your broken. So, recently I watched a documentary which propped up a lot of things in my head. And after watching it, I started noticing something that's been a little toxic in the sales industry, something that's been hurting us for a while. There's an idea out there, and a lot of people say it is you either win or you learn. You either win or you learn. Yeah, that sounds great. It's an excellent idea. You either come away with the deal or you come with a lesson of some kind that you can carry forward. I say that's true 85, 90% of the time. There's usually something to improve. Um, I want to talk about the 10, 15% that it isn't true, though. And to do that, I want to use a couple examples. I like sports metaphors. I'm a big basketball fan. So I'm going to stick with the NBA because there's a lot of statistics that we can look at and that we can go over. And then I want to talk about why I'm starting to talk about this now. So, most people who follow sports at all know the all time single game points record in the NBA is held by Wilt Chamberlain when he scored 100 points in one game. 100 points in one game. To put that in context, most NBA All Stars are 20, 25 points a game. Um, that is absolutely phenomenal. It's unheard of. It's not something that's really been close to repeated except for once. So what I want to do is rather than talk about that game, I want to talk about the second and the third. The second single game scoring record is held by Kobe Bryant. He scored 81 games in 2006. The third is held again by Wilt Chamberlain, where he scored 78 points against the Lakers. This was when he was still in Philadelphia, um, in a loss to the Lakers. So let me talk about each one first. So we're talking about winning and learning, like we're the idea that we can take either a win, we could put a W in the column, or we have to learn a lesson where something just doesn't go our way. So on that win, the 2006 game was against the Toronto Raptors with Kobe Bryant, where he scored 81 points. It was a phenomenal game. I rewatched highlights of it. It's on ESPN Classic every so often. It was amazing. Kobe was just a monster. He was able to hit whatever he wanted. Lesser known about that game was Mike James. Mike James was the point guard for Toronto, and he is an NBA All Star. He has a championship ring. He is a phenomenal player in and of by himself. He had one of his top 30 games of his entire career that night against Kobe, the same night. He was playing across the ball from Kobe. He wasn't the defender. He didn't really have Kobe as his defensive assignment, but he scored 26 points that game. That is in his top 30 of his whole career. And he played about 500 to like 5 to 600 games, somewhere in there. I can't remember the exact number. Top 5% performance in his career. Um, 26 points, 10 rebounds. And as a point guard, the point guards are usually the smallest ones on the court. To get 10 rebounds is pretty phenomenal. Imagine being the coach of the Raptors at that time and trying to tell Mike that he messed up, that he didn't do everything, that he didn't leave it all on the court, that he missed a bunch of assignments. No, you can do everything right, and the person across from you has a phenomenal game. Just bats the shoots, has the game of their life. You can't go and then say, well, here's everything you did wrong because they're not going to listen to you. It's disingenuous. A top 30 game in a career that spans almost 600 games, It doesn't happen that often. 1 in 20, he has a performance like that. So you can't really blame him. You can't go and look at the Toronto Raptors and say, you guys messed up when the person across on the other bench had an historic performance. Well, what if you can? Let's talk about number three. The third all-time single-game scoring record is once again held by Wilt Chamberlain when he was in Philadelphia against the Lakers. He scored 78 points and had 43 rebounds in that game. 78 points, 43 rebounds, and he lost. The Philadelphia lost that game against the Lakers, even with nearly 80 points being scored by one person. Now, there was a triple overtime game, granted, but could you imagine being that coach and looking at Wilt and saying, you messed up? No. There are some times you lose, and we have to admit that. We have to be able to take those lumps without assuming there's some grander lesson in the world, that somehow we are at fault for everything. The reason I want to talk about this is recently I just watched The Vow, the HBO documentary on the NXIVM cult in upstate New York. And one of the things I've noticed is everything that that person did wrong, everything that went wrong in that person's life, they were to blame for it. Everything that went right was because of the program, was because of the executive success program that Keith Raniere created. People were always at fault. They were always accepting fault and giving credit. And while as a leader, that's a great thing, as a grunt salesperson, that is going to be very destructive to your psyche. You can't constantly be in a state of, I messed up. I I I, I ruined everything. I've been taught all of these great things, and it all fell apart for me. Think about that. Think about how damaging it is that everything is your fault and nothing you do is right. It's somebody else's. Somebody else deserves the credit for whatever you accomplish. That's the message that a lot of sales coaches and trainers want to give to people. And I get it. It makes you feel empowered. It makes you feel like, yes, I can do this. I'm the one who has the power over this scenario, but you don't always. There are some cases where you will play the game of your life, where you will hit every impulse, you will talk about every emotion, you will build an immense amount of value. And we talked about why I hate that phrase and before, but you will do everything right and they will still say no. It's going to happen. And for your own mental health, I highly suggest you just chalk it up that way. You take those 10% that you lose and you do everything the right way and just move forward. You have to not learn a lesson. You just have to keep moving. You just have to let it fall behind you and move on to the next one. Because if you internalize everything. If you take everything that you hear and every fault and every sentence and every pause personally, it's going to be a difficult career for you. I highly, highly suggest do a once over and forget it. If there is something to learn, great, because there will be 85, 90% of the time. But if you don't notice anything at first glance, forget it and move forward. Sometimes they will play the game of their life. That's what happened with Kobe. That's the second time it happened with Wilt. You can't internalize it all and get upset every single time something doesn't go the way you want it to and assume this burden of guilt every single time. It will eat you alive. So I hope this helps. I hope you guys have really enjoyed this episode. I hope you take it to heart because otherwise, you're going to end up with ulcers. You're going to stress out, burn out. And that's not what we want. That's not what broken salespeople is about. It's about putting ourselves back together and holding each other up, like keeping each other in the right mindset to actually be productive, to accomplish what we're looking for. That's what this channel is. Getting rid of all the toxic BS that we've been taught over the years. Sometimes they play the game of their life. Sometimes you play the game of your life and you still lose. It's going to happen. So please take the time. If you enjoyed this content, subscribe, review, like this video, etc., etc. You could also find a ton of content on brokensalespeople.com. Blogs, podcasts, all sorts of information there. Follow me on LinkedIn, all the et ceteras, et ceteras. There's a ton of information that I put out there to help you. You just have to take advantage of it. So until next time, please go fix yourself.